Yeah, we've been doing this survey on sense of belonging in the School of Computer Science since 2017, and we extended it just recently across the entire College of Science in UCD, which is composed of 7 schools. And one question that we've just started looking at just very recently, and I'm delighted to say that I'm in collaboration with Anthony and Flavia and Ada Maria on this, is does confidence in mathematical ability matter? So Brett and I have been working on this for quite a long time, and recently Shamima has just joined as a PhD student on the project, and more recently again Andrew McCarthan has joined as a postdoc, which is really nice for us because he actually has a social science background, which I think we needed to really bring into this work. So sense of belonging is a personal belief that one is an accepted member of an academic community whose presence and contributions are valued. And belongingness is really important because it's associated with progression and retention as well as student mental health and well-being. And belongingness has been shown to be associated with your gender identity, your race or ethnicity, whether you're a member of the LGBTQIA community or not, and things like your socio-economic background. So we're interested in investigating this. Okay, so as I said, we've been running these surveys now since 2017. The core of the survey is this sense of belonging scale. And the sense of belonging scale has 18 positively framed questions. You know, they're sort of simple questions like I feel valued, I feel accepted, but also things like I have trust that I do not have to constantly prove myself. I trust my instructors to be committed to helping me learn. And even when I do poorly, I trust that my instructors have faith in my potential. And then the negatively framed questions, I feel excluded, I feel neglected, and things like I wish I could fade into the background. I try to say as little as possible. We also ask students questions around their gender identity. We ask them to self-describe their race and ethnicity. We also ask them if they identify as part of a minority within the College of Science or within their school. And if they do, then we ask them to self-describe what minority they identify with, so that we don't use any sort of check boxes. So this does make the survey more difficult to analyze, but it also makes it really, really interesting because students identify as minoritized for many different reasons. We also ask them questions around do you enjoy problem solving, how confident were you in your maths abilities before you joined UCD, and how confident are you now? And I'm going to talk about this just at the end. We also ask students how much they interact socially with other students in their school and in the college, and are they a member of any clubs or societies? And then we had 2 open-ended questions at the end where we asked students to talk about things that may have positively or negatively affected their sense of belonging. And we also asked them to give us some suggestions on how they think we might improve sense of belonging in their school or in the college. So before the pandemic in the School of Computer Science, we found that minoritized women had a lower sense of belonging compared to other students in the school. But we also found that women who took part in networking, outreach, and mentoring activities had a higher sense of belonging. We ran the survey again just after the start of the pandemic, so in August 2020. So students had been moved off campus online in March 2020, so they'd only been online for about 6 weeks, for about a 6-week period. But this had a dramatic impact on the sense of belonging of our students in computer science. So what we saw here, and I should have put a line, so if you see around 2020 there, that's the start of the pandemic. So before the pandemic, there wasn't like a huge change in the sense of belonging of our students. The non-minoritized students, so we have non-minoritized women and men, or the red and the green lines at the top. You know, their sense of belonging was quite high. Minoritized men were sort of in the middle, and minoritized women had a very low sense of belonging. But when the pandemic started and the students were moved into this online environment, the sense of belonging of the minoritized women actually went up. And I was really interested in the talk on neurodiversity earlier, the neurodiversity survey, where they were saying, like, you know, the benefits of being in an online environment for some neurodiverse students. I also think that the online environment was maybe beneficial for some women because you can sort of hide your identity, I think, when you're online. So it certainly worked well for some of our students. However, there was a dramatic decrease in the sense of belonging of the non-minoritized students, and I think they just had more to lose. Since students have returned to campus, we've seen that the minoritized men, their sense of belonging has started to increase again. Non-minoritized women have sort of stayed the same. The minoritized women, who are the ones in blue, their sense of belonging has started to drop again. But we've seen quite a big drop in the minoritized men, and we don't fully understand this, and I'm wondering if maybe that might be linked to neurodiversity, because that's something that's coming up more and more in our surveys. So in terms of running the survey across the College of Science, we had 378 responses. This is just data now from this time last year. So roughly maybe half and half men and women. We had a small number of non-binary and trans students, but we haven't always included them in the analysis to preserve their identities. And the sense of belonging scores go from minus 78 to 132 with a midpoint of 27. And the mean for our students was just to the right of that, but obviously we'd like to see the sense of belonging of all of our students improve over time. So when we look at these students, the students across the College of Science, in terms of gender, there wasn't really a huge difference. But what we do see is that there's a big difference in terms of students that identify as minoritized or not. And then in this figure here, I've just shown how that breaks down in terms of gender. It's interesting when you look at how students identify. So even though objectively there are students who identify as men in schools where they are a minority, not one single student who responded to the survey who identified as a man identified as minoritized because of his gender. So that's even in environments where men are objectively a minority, they're not identifying as minoritized. Whereas, obviously a lot of women are identifying as minoritized, even potentially in environments where they might be in a school where actually the majority of students are women. Not all women identify as minoritized because of their gender. They might identify as minoritized for other reasons, or a number of reasons, including their gender. So the reasons that students identified as minoritized most frequently were due to their gender, their race and ethnicity, membership of the LGBTQIA community, or having a disability. And things that we're starting to see coming up more and more recently in our surveys are issues around socio-economic background and neurodisability. So I did expect to see that there would be more of a difference across the 7 schools in the College of Science. So I thought that maybe we might see differences associated with schools that were predominantly women or schools that were predominantly men. We didn't really see that pattern coming out of the results. What we did see is how sense of belonging correlated with some of the different questions that we had asked students. So, it's sort of obvious, but I guess it's nice to see that the data supports this, that the more students socialize with other students, the stronger their sense of belonging is. We also saw that there is a correlation between their confidence and their maths ability now. And this is something that is sort of quite new to us and quite interesting. And this is across the entire college. So we're not just talking about schools, we're not just talking about computer science and maths and physics, for example. We're including the biology schools in this. So there is definitely a correlation there between the confidence in their maths ability and their sense of belonging. And we're also seeing that students who come in through access routes have a lower confidence in their maths ability when they come into the college. So I think this is really important also. So overall, students that are coming in through access routes have a statistically significantly lower sense of belonging than students that are coming in through the competitive access route, the Leaving Cert. And again, the fact that the confidence and maths ability of the students coming in through the access routes is lower, I think is really important for us. So this is some new data that we've just recently put together that I'm still sort of trying to make sense of. So I was hoping that maybe there might be people here who might be able to help us out with this. But so the top line here, so this is in response to the question, how confident are you in your maths ability? How confident were you in your maths ability before you came into UCD, and how confident are you in your maths ability now? And I guess I naively expected to see that students would be more confident in their maths ability after being in college for some time, and that's not what we're seeing. So we are seeing that the students who came in through the Leaving Cert route, we're starting with quite a high confidence in their maths ability, but this is really dropping over time. The third and the fourth line there are the students who are coming in through access routes. So they're coming in already with quite a low confidence in their maths ability. And their confidence is dropping a little bit. I mean, not as dramatically as the students who are coming in from the Leaving Cert, but they still have a much lower confidence in their maths ability. So I think this is, something I think that we need to be aware of, and I think this is something that we can address. And I think, from my point of view, what I'm interested in is this confidence in maths ability and how it links with sense of belonging, and how then sense of belonging is linked to progression and retention and mental health and well-being. But the thing is that even when we looked at the difference between men before and men now, women before, women now, we're seeing the same sort of patterns where they're coming in with a higher confidence in their maths ability, and their confidence is dropping over time. Although you can see that the women are having, it does look worse. I think sort of proportionally the drop is sort of similar. And again, the same thing with our students who are identifying as minoritized or not. So we're seeing this similar sort of pattern across, whether they're coming in from Leaving Cert or access route, or whether they're men or women or minoritized or non-minoritized. So this is just something that, we are in the process of investigating further with Anthony and Flavia and Ada Maria. So I don't know, maybe I'll present this again at some stage in the future and have more answers for you, because I think that's unfortunately sort of all I have for today, other than to say that we are seeing these patterns. I think it's really interesting. I think it's important, but I don't necessarily have any better explanation for it at the moment. So maybe somebody here can give me some suggestions in terms of what we might do or what we might look at in the future. So I know we're really tight for time at the moment, but I'll be around afterwards as well if anybody would like to chat about this. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you for your talk. I was just wondering, when did you say you did that previous slide? When did you actually take that data? Sorry, the prior and
So this is what I'm presenting here is the results from the survey that we did last spring. And we just asked the students, how confident were you in your maths ability before, and how confident are you now? So some of them, there'll be stage 1, 2, 3, and 4 students. So we do need to look to see the difference, I suppose, between the stage 1 students, stage 2, 3. So is it? Yeah.
As well, because they're all getting predictive grades and they're generally inflated. They have an inflated sense of where they were at, as well as what you said there.
Yeah.
That on top of it, probably.
Yeah. That's a really okay. So that's really interesting. Thanks. We can look at that because we do have data just from computer science from 2017 to 2020. The results across the College of Science are just from last spring, but actually we could compare at least the computer science students to see if there's a difference, maybe in that, especially for the students doing the Leaving Cert. Yeah,
I think Emma Howard, she did her PhD here at UCD. She did stuff on sense of belonging at university, and she was looking at Irish students. This is going back a good few years pre-pandemic, and she saw that students coming from second level, particularly through the Irish Leaving Certificate system, that when they got to first year at university, it was after their first assessment in mathematics, which could have been 5 or 6 weeks in, that their sense of identity just dropped. And it was related to the result that they got in that first assessment. So that might have been 57%, but that to them was low compared to what they were getting in school. Now 57% might have been in the top quartile of that university class, but they just didn't know because they were in with 300 others and they didn't know where they sat. But they were used to getting A pluses or A1s or H1s, whatever they're called now, and just coming to university. It's just a different ball game. Yeah. That was pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Emma.
We did a study a few years ago, and we found that leaving students had such high confidence to begin with that they couldn't actually go off the study. You don't say it stayed the same or went down. I was just teaching your access students, since they're coming in with a lower confidence, they have the room to increase. But you can't say, leaving cert students can increase because it's so high to begin with. I don't know if that helps.
So the access students, the background was so poor.
Yeah,
maths,
exactly,
they
exactly.
could only
Yeah,
improve
yeah.
nearly, yeah.
Yeah, so I think this is very similar to your findings, Emma.
Okay, thank you for that, Emma. Any other questions from the room or online? Otherwise, we'll thank Catherine again for a lovely talk. Thanks a million, Catherine.